Folks, it's me, Denny. Welcome to yet another episode of the Dad Szn Show. This one is episode 8, and we are going to talk about, eventually, I should say, we're going to talk about the good cop, bad cop parenting paradigm or dynamic or strategy or whatever you want to call it, and how we might be able to do better. How that might not set us up as parents for success. I'll talk about my experience. I have some citations from parenting experts who have written extensively about the good cop bad cop dynamic and how it fails basically, and how it creates massive confusion among all parties, not just the kids, parents, kids, neighbors, dogs, cats, fish if you have them, everybody. It's a very confusing thing to deal with as a family unit. So we're going to get to that. I wanted to start the show doing what I should have done last time, which was to tell you about the Dad Szn Show Patreon page, which I launched last week. Look, I don't particularly want to ask you to pledge money to support the Dad Szn Show. But as I build up the show on YouTube and Spotify and other other outlets, I'm hoping to eventually have ad revenue coming in that will support the show, so I don't have to come to you and say, hey, would you like to support the show with a $5 contribution to my Patreon. But for now, I would appreciate if you're getting anything from the Dad Szn Show, if you're enjoying it, to join the Dad Szn Show community, which is slowly but surely growing on the Patreon. And I just wanted to share something that kind of heartened me the other day. It was from a patron, Dad Szn Show patron named Daniel Alt. I had sent out this video called Listening to Your Kid is Hard, where I talked about all the distractions of 21st century life and how it makes truly actively listening to your children a challenge. We'll just say a challenge slash the hardest thing possible. And so here's what Daniel said in the comments of that video, and I really appreciated this. Kind of reinforced the idea of what I'm going for with this Patreon for Dad Szn Show, which is a community of dads and moms. They can talk about challenges and, not looking for perfect answers because we don't have those. I don't have those. Okay. Unfortunately, I feel like I might have more subscribers if I actually had all the answers. I don't, but I like to talk about, the process of becoming a better parent. So here's what Daniel wrote underneath the post, listening to your kid is hard. Daniel said, driving this morning with my 6-year-old daughter in the car, pull up to a red light and a Taylor Swift song comes on the radio. My daughter springs to life out of pure joy and immediately starts dumping all of the Taylor Swift knowledge she can find in her brain directly on top of me. I could not have cared any less at that moment and decided to respond to a text my wife had sent a few minutes prior. The light is still red, and after I reply, so I decided to quickly check my email. But as I'm doing that, a notification pops up that says, quote, listening to your kid is hard, unquote. This snapped me back to reality. I put the phone down and jumped back into the conversation by telling my daughter that I had Taylor Swift's boyfriend on my fantasy football team last year. We talked about various Swiftie-related things, the rest of our short trip, and it felt good that we were able to connect over the one bond our two very different interests shared. I didn't have the heart to tell her I traded Travis Kelce away in week 4. There's some lines you can't cross, and it's true. You don't want to embarrass yourself as a dad. So that was good on Daniel's part. But yeah, so Daniel, two things, the takeaways from Daniel's comment there. One, him saying that he couldn't have cared less about what his daughter was saying. That's brutally honest. And come on, come on, if we're being real about what it is to be a parent, there are times when you don't care. Like whatever is being said to you doesn't pique your interest. There are 8 things on your mind that are taking priority over what is being told to you. And guess what? You have to try to care. You have to put forth the effort to at least show that you're trying to care about the thing you're being told about by your child. It's part of the job. And honestly, really, I have found that honesty is, as always, the best policy in these situations. When you literally can't focus on what's being said to you by your child about whatever interests they have, whether it's musical, video games, something at school, whatever, something they saw on YouTube shorts, you and you're listening to that and you're trying to juggle 3 other things and your mind is somewhere else. It's okay. It's okay to say, hold on, hold on. I really want to pay attention. I want to pay close attention to what you're saying right now. And I can't do that right now. So we need to stop this for a moment. Let me handle some things. I'm going to come back and we're going to have a real conversation about Taylor Swift's discography and what Taylor's version means. No one knows. No one is sure. Okay. But I want you to explain to me what that means to you, Taylor's version of songs. Something like that. Something like that. Just be upfront. I know it feels like you have to be like a superhero all the time and be able to feign paying attention while juggling emails and texts and thinking about the groceries and thinking about taking the dog out and thinking about cleaning up the living room before before your parents get here or whatever. All this stuff, okay? I know you think you can do that. Or I should say, as a parent, you think you should be able to do that. Right? It's just part of the territory. You simply do all the things at once. But no, you're going to burn out real quick. Even if you're able to pull it off a little bit here and there, you're going to burn out. I promise. That's a promise. From me to you, you're going to burn out. And that's not good. That's not good for anybody. You, your kids, your partner, again, the neighbors, the dog, the cat, the fish. All of those people and creatures, none of them, I should say, do benefit from you being burned out. So don't burn yourself out. Take one thing at a time. And Daniel, I appreciate you being honest about that. Couldn't care less about it. I'm with you, buddy. I'm with you. And then the other, excuse me, the other thing I wanted to mention was trying to find some common ground with your kids' interests. In this case, it was fantasy football connected to Travis Kelce, connected to Taylor Swift. And I'm sure that is almost universal at this point between parents and parents who play fantasy sports and then their kids who like Taylor Swift. So that's a good example. I'm trying to think of other examples, but basically, I think that you can, if you really try, you can connect your interests to your kids' interests. And for more on interests, check out, I think it was episode 4 or 5 of the Dad Szn Show. You're right to be interesting, which I think is a good message, a good lesson for everyone involved. So that was Daniel's contribution to the Dad Szn Show Patreon. I would greatly appreciate any support that you all can give. You can join as a free member. You can join as a paid member for $5 a month. I would tell you something like you spend $5 a month on coffee, but you probably spend $5 a day on coffee. And also that's okay. That's okay. We all have to have our little treats to get through dystopia, whatever you may call the current cultural landscape. So yeah, any support would be greatly appreciated. It won't be forever. I'm going to have ads on this thing eventually. I'm just going to pelt you with ads. Okay. I better learn how to read a gambling script, buddy. Something like that. All right. We're going to get into the good good cop, bad cop paradigm in a moment. I just wanted to get into the comments here real quick. Neil Dutton, one of my favorite Englishmen in the world, says, I'm more the hapless captain who can't get the loose cannon cop and straight-laced cop to work together than a good cop, bad cop. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Neil, and we'll try to address that here. Diego Lopez, friend of the show, friend of mine, says, how many meals for the interns will $5 per month pay? Buy, I should say. The answer is 0, Diego. I've told you, and I've told everybody many times, these are unpaid interns who work at Dad Szn Show. They're, you know what they're paid in, folks? They're paid in experience. Okay, experience, and their experience is mostly related to sleep deprivation and severe thirst, because there will be no food or water or sleep in my workplace. So thank you for asking that question, though. David Filippi in the comments. Denny says, never owned online because, like all parents, he is fully owned at home. You know, you think you know me? You don't know me. No, you do. David's back. Denny, you prepared me for this years ago, talking about Xavier's Minecraft monologues. Yeah, my son used to be super into Minecraft. I didn't understand it at all, but there was a lot of I engaged in a lot of talking about Minecraft. So yeah, that was good practice for what would eventually become Pokemon Apocalypse. Neil says, a few years removed, but I sometimes find myself missing my eldest's 45-minute verbal dissertations on Animal Crossing. Yeah, I guess that's another thing here is I think it actually links back to what Pete Overzet talked about on the show a couple weeks ago, which is what he termed pre-nostalgia. I love that phrase. I love the concept. I get the concept, I guess, is what I should say. And so Neil's having Neil's saying, maybe try to engage in some pre-nostalgia with your kid as they talk to you about Animal Crossing for 45 minutes. To say, man, I know for a fact that one day when I'm old, I'm going to look back at this and think, man, I would love to hear a 45-minute dissertation on Animal Crossing, on Pokemon, on Taylor Swift, on whatever else your kids are interested in. So that's a good one, Neil. Thank you for that. Diego says, sometimes the common ground is simply liking something a lot. Yes, I stopped judging them so much for watching video game streamers when I realized I liked watching football players play a game. Diego, I have come to that same conclusion. I'm a judgmental guy. You all know that about me. I'm trying desperately to work on it, but turns out really hard to go from the most judgmental person on the face of the earth to a somewhat reasonable person overnight. So it's taking some work, but yeah, when I first realized that people were watching other people play video games online, I thought, well, this is the end of culture. Like, this is the end of the world. Like there's no coming back from this. What a ridiculous thing for kids, for teenagers, whatever, young adults to watch people playing video games online. And then I remembered that I am immersed in fantasy football culture, a game within a game. I watch streams of other fantasy football players drafting teams, creating teams, talking about their teams. And then, of course, and please don't tell anybody online, but I watch the games. Please do not tell anybody. I'm begging you. Okay. I have a reputation to uphold as the analytics guy. If I'm really the analytics guy, I can't be watching games. It's a waste of time. It poisons the process. But yeah, no, I do. I watch games. And yeah, so what's the difference? What's the difference, indeed? And then Matthew says, Denny judging himself about being judgmental is the Denny infinite loop we crave. Yeah, I don't know where that loop ends. I think your implication here is that it never does. So yes, I need to be. Here's what Matthew's saying. I think I need to be nicer to myself uh, in order to expunge the judgmentalness, the judgment out of my pores. Right? You got to get it out. You gotta just yank it out. All right, we're going to get to the good cop, bad cop paradigm in a second, but real quick, Tyler in the chat says, as a person who started gaming as a social activity, I've enjoyed watching streams as a communal activity since I don't get to since I don't get to game with others. It's all social connection in times of disconnection. Yeah. Isn't that something? I know that there have been, essays, research, everything written on our fraying social connections, and yet we still reach for connection through other means, right? It's baked into our DNA. Like, we got to connect. We have to feel like a human. And if that means you're watching a stream and chatting with people online, that is some form of connection. Is it as good as face to face? I'm guessing no. I'm guessing it doesn't stimulate the brain the same way. It doesn't make you happy in the same way, probably. Okay. I'm no scientist. It's just a guess. But yeah, it is the way. It is the way that we commune now, right? When there's an island game in the NFL, Thursday night, whatever, Sunday night, Monday night, that's a communal experience where we're all watching the same thing, and we're all sitting and we're posting our thoughts on it, and it is a communal. It's a social activity, whether you like it or not. And sometimes I don't like it. Other times I can see it. All right, we're gonna get into the good cop, bad cop parenting style, because I think that this is an easy one to default to fall back on. I'll speak first, just a little bit about my experience with it. So in my household growing up, everybody was allergic to conflict. Conflict was to be avoided at all costs, including grinning and bearing it. Okay, including just white knuckling it, including grinding your molars, all of the unhealthy things to just keep the emotions, keep the bad feelings stuffed down deep. Don't talk about them. Don't talk about them, because you're going to create conflict. Okay, it's deeply uncomfortable with conflict. And this was, of course, passed down from my grandparents, who would do anything not to have conflict with the family, with their friends, with whoever. Okay, so it's a family tradition, a Carter family tradition: avoid conflict at all costs. So that's my background. My wife's background is the complete opposite. She grew up in a household that engaged in disagreements, in voicing concerns, crazy things like that, and that would sometimes lead to conflict. And we've been together forever. We've been together since 2001. So we grew up together. So I got to see a lot of that, and it was jarring to me, because I had never seen a family engage in that way, and not shy away from potential conflicts. I'm not saying that every conversation turned into a conflict, but I am saying that there was no demand, unspoken or spoken, to stay away from conflict, to avoid conflict. And so sometimes there was headbutting. So me and my wife went into parenthood with these two completely different backgrounds on conflict. And so you would guess that I turn out to be the good cop, who, again, avoids conflict at any cost. And my wife would take on the role of the bad cop, who is not looking for an argument with the kids, not seeking disagreement, but will hold the line and say no. No, you can't do that. You need to do this. Things of that nature. Okay. And so that instantly makes her the bad cop. So for a while, that was the dynamic. First season of Dad Szn Show. I'm sorry, first or second episode of Dad Szn Show. I talked about authoritarian parenting. Well, I kind of took on the authoritarian thing when my son was, a toddler, or I should say maybe a little older. And then so I completely lost control of my emotions. I did not want to regulate at all. I just, as I talked about in that episode on authoritarian parenting, I wanted to be as scary as possible intentionally as a strategy to get my way, to get my kid to do what I thought he should do. And so during that period, I became the bad cop. So I've been on both sides of this paradigm. Okay, I have been the good cop who has avoided conflict and been the one that you come to and you say, hey, like the bad cop is being mean to me, Dad, Mr. Good Cop. And I say, well, come to me and you're going to get what you want because I'm not going to engage in any sort of conflict with you. And you know that. And that's why you're coming to me. So I've been there. I've also been the crazy tyrant who has been the bad cop. And I'm not proud of that at all. I'm not really proud of either of those things. And I could say that I liked being the good cop a lot more than I like being the bad cop. And maybe if you all have experience with being the bad cop in your marriage, your partnership, I think you would agree. It kind of sucks to be the bad cop because you're basically your relationship with your kid can be boiled down to fear at that point. Fear that you're going to maybe yell, maybe scream, maybe threaten, okay? That you're going to take away things that they like, okay? That you're going to, levy punishment for small things. And that is a horrible role to be in, okay? It's a role I think that it can kind of eat at your soul. And it can lead, at least for me, it led to me questioning like who am I exactly? When did this happen? When did I become the bad cop? When did I become the tyrant? I'm not a tyrant. I'm such a nice guy that in my life when I've gotten mad, people don't even know I'm mad. Okay? Like when I actually become angry and like yell, they like smile and like, what's this guy's deal? What's this guy? What's it? Why is he yelling? What's he yelling for? He's the nice guy. He doesn't even look mad, but I'm furious at this point. So it didn't mesh for me. I was not prepared to be in that role. I did find myself in that role. So I know both sides of the coin there. I want to get to your comments in a second, but I wanted to read from a piece written by Amanda Morin. She's an author of 5 parenting books with a specialty in special education. Here's what she wrote about the good cop, bad cop strategy for parenting. It is hard on both parents and kids. Either you or your partner always ends up being the tough parent, and that can hurt your relationship. It can also send your child conflicting signals about important issues. If your child has learning and thinking differences, she's already facing challenges many kids don't have. Not knowing what her parent expects from her can make things harder. Even if you or your partner are at a different stages in the process of accepting your child's issues, there are simple things you can do to make sure you're clear and united in your daily expectations. Putting up a united front doesn't mean you and your partner always have to agree about how to raise your child, but it does mean trying not to disagree about it in front of her. For instance, your partner may think your child should do some homework, do her homework after school. You may think she needs some downtime first. If your child is hearing both points of view, she may get confused about what to do, whether homework is a priority, and whose opinion matters most. Try to resolve how you want to handle difficult issues privately with your partner, ideally, before either of you tells your child what to do. And yes, it's the key, really, like the skeleton key for avoiding good cop, bad cop parenting is being on the same page. And sometimes that's not easy. Sometimes that requires some tough conversations with your partner. It requires, and I know some of you will bucket this, it requires compromise. Okay. Now we all love when politicians talk about compromise. We're going to compromise with our friends across the aisle, and it makes you want to throw up. And you say, no, there's right and there's wrong, and I don't want to hear about compromise. You can't take that. Can't take that tact in parenting. Can't take it. Can't do it. Cannot do it. And here's how I know you can't do it. I've tried that. I've tried it. So you definitely don't want to have these conversations about what should and should not be happening with your kid. You don't want to have them in front of the kid. And that may seem obvious, but it requires forethought. It requires planning, right? It requires a sit down, maybe after the kids go to bed, and buddy, you're exhausted. The only thing you want to do is sit in front of the TV and relax. You do not want to have a meeting with your partner. And you're not going to have to do this every day, of course, but sometimes you gotta do it. You gotta toughen up, and you gotta say, okay, the kids are down. I'm so exhausted. I could fall down on the floor literally and go to sleep. That's how tired I am. And now, buddy, it's time for a meeting, and we're going to meet, and we're going to talk for 10 to 12 minutes about how to handle this homework situation. And you don't want to do it. You're not going to want it. No one wants to have this conversation. It needs to be had privately, away from the child, so that you can present, like the writer said here, Amanda Morin, Morin, if you want to look her up. You can present, crucially, a united front. Without the united front, everything crumbles because the kid's so confused. Well, mom says this, but dad says that. So what do I do? Well, the kid's going to say, well, I'm going to do whatever's the easiest. Whatever is most appealing to me, I'm going to side with that. And it can be used as leverage against the other parent. Of course it can. And of course it will. That's natural. Okay? Kids, I don't know, I don't know what percentage of the population are lawyers. There's no way to find out. But I can tell you that a lot of kids seem to be excellent lawyers. Okay? They use leverage with arguments all the time. It's amazing. It's amazing stuff. Back to Amanda Morin. Once you figured out what you agree on, you can begin to make a plan. Remember that your discussion isn't about winning or losing. That's important. It's about finding the best way to reach your shared goals. That may mean compromise for you both, or it may mean agreeing to put out differing approaches until one works. Sometimes experimentation is needed. Back to Amanda Morin. Once you've developed a plan, present it to your child together. And I really can't stress this enough. You really need to be together, physically present, both of you, to talk about this plan, because that is a united front. One person coming and saying, hey, your dad and I talked about this, your mom and I talked about this, and here's what we came to, here's the conclusion we came to. That doesn't work. You both need to be there. So you need to arrange it so that you both can be there. That's my experience anyway. And then you can say, here's the plan for homework, and whatever it is. Okay. But really, I think that these are good, solid, concrete steps to be able to say, look, Your mom's not going to be a good cop, and I'm not going to be a good cop. She's not going to be a bad cop, and neither am I. We are neutral cops. I don't know. I don't know what to say about that. And we have a plan, and this is what we're going to do. And you should not be confused because we're all on the same page. Now, the plan requires execution. That's where I have failed sometimes with after school duties like homework, like, taking out the trash, cleaning up the room, whatever. I get home and I'm frazzled and I need to do 3 things for work and this and that's happening. And I got to take the dog out. The dog's always got to go out. God bless America. God bless Ziggy. And I kind of forget sometimes. I forgot recently to have the kids do their after school chores. And that put a crack in the united front. Okay. Because the next day, the kids were, hey, we didn't have to do this yesterday. And mom wasn't here. Mom's not here again. You're telling me that you're going to make us do our after school activity chores today? What happened to yesterday? And so you have to kind of reestablish that front and say, look, that was my bad. That's on me, folks. That's on me. We're going to get back to the after school chores. So execution is another critical part here. All right. Before I get to the second part of the good cop, bad cop situation, how to avoid it, why it's detrimental, things like that, I'm going to get to the comments real quick. Also, hey, if you could like and subscribe to this channel, like the video, especially that helps me out apparently. All right, here we go. We are, let's see, Tyler. Oh yeah, Tyler's talking about online social activities. Germs the Germ is finally able to watch the stream. Thanks for joining, Germs the Germ. Diego says, my wife is more the spiky cop, and they sometimes come to me for comfort. But I really try hard not to undermine her parenting when she's in conflict with our kids. Yes. And that's so easy to do, right? So over the past year, as I've really tried to commit to authoritative parenting, which is boundary setting, you can check that out in a previous episode, but committing to authoritative parenting over authoritarian parenting, which has been a very hard transition, but I think I have been successful with it. I've developed a far more healthy, better relationship with my son. Just way better than it used to be. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate that, how much I appreciate my wife bringing that into my life and helping me to heal that relationship with my son, which was not good. I mean, really, that change in relationship is why I wanted to do this show, because I feel compelled to tell other dads about it and moms, parents, I should say it doesn't have to be like this. For a long time, I just thought it has to be like this. I have to have a horrible relationship with my kid. And no, that's not true. That's not true. Sorry. But yes, it is something to strive for, getting away from the authoritarian parenting. So anyway, creating this relationship, this new relationship with my son, he now comes to me when my wife is holding the line on some sort of boundary, right? And when I side with my wife, and I always do, and I say, well, no, that is a boundary. We talked about this. We have to abide by it. That's how our house is going to work. He says, well, who's in charge? And I actually talked about this on the Patreon page. If folks want to check it out, it's free. Who's in charge? Who's the man of the family? Who wears the pants around here? This is what he says as a direct challenge. And these barbs are designed to crack the united front. Okay. But if the united front is strong enough, it can't be cracked. That's the beauty part of it. That I'm telling you that if the front is strong enough, there's no amount of verbal barbs can destroy it. It just kind of bounces off. And if you're calm about it, even if you have to step away, even if it makes you mad, even if a comment like that fires up your lizard brain, okay, turns you into the liver king temporarily, then you need to hold it. You need to hold the line just like your partner is holding the line. But man, let me tell you, it's tempting. It's real tempting sometimes to engage in the good cop dynamic and say, yes, you've come to me for a reprieve. I'm the governor, okay? And you're on death row and you're asking, please have mercy. And I say, no. No, you still got to clean your room, buddy. All right. Some more comments and then we'll go to the second part here. Matt is in the chat. Thanks for joining. Matt, yeah, double chores today. Got to make up for yesterday. That's, you know what that is, folks? That's analytics. It's analytics. Diego, back in the chat. Sometimes it requires talking about the ways you disagree about how to handle certain situation. That's hard for me as an anti-confrontational person, but it pays off. Yeah, so having a lot of experience with confrontation is really advantageous for parenting. I have to say. I think that people, I'm not saying that people who grew up in like toxic, like super confrontational households where everybody's fighting all the time. I'm not saying that those people are best prepared for parenthood. That's probably not the case at all. What I am saying is that having some experience with confrontation, which I didn't have going into parenthood or marriage, is beneficial. It helps. It helps prepare you to, again, hold the line, set the boundary, be not the good cop or the bad cop, but a parent, not a friend to the kid, not an adversary, simply a parent, simply the biggest person in the room. Okay. All right. Let's get down to the second part of this. Some keys from Amanda Morin on avoiding the good cop, bad cop scenario. One is to share disciplinary responsibilities. One of the most common ways to fall into the good cop, bad cop parenting trap is allowing only one parent to be the disciplinarian. Instead, both parents should play a role in disciplining children for small and more severe mishaps, rather than letting kids believe that mom is the quote fun one for not disciplining them. Share the role with the quote bad cop so the kids don't learn to fear one parent. We talked about that just a minute ago. Number 2 is pick a signal. And you may say, what is this guy talking about now? Denny, what are you talking about? I'll tell you what I'm talking about. It may sound strange, but working out a signal with your partner could help avoid arguments over parenting decisions. To avoid arguing in front of the kids, again, something to really very much avoid, simply agree on a hand gesture. The gesture will signal you both to step away from the kids and discuss how you want to handle the situation together. I'm going to come back to that in a second. And then communicate consistently. And this is the thing about having meetings. Having meetings is important. And then make a plan of importance. If the kids fuss every day at bedtime, don't let one parent always be the lenient one saying, okay, just a little longer. Instead, make a plan as a parenting team to choose when it's important to be lenient and when to put your foot down. We all want to feel liked by our kids. So learn to share the good cop responsibilities just like you would the disciplinary ones. Disciplinary is a little vague and maybe fraught with meaning here. So I'm not going to get into that too much. And by disciplinary, like I'm not advocating for, like sending your kids to their room if they, spill the milk or something like that. That's not what I'm talking about. Obviously nothing physical, obviously nothing like emotionally damaging, no verbal, nothing close to verbal abuse. That's not what I'm advocating for at all. I think you would know that if the Dad Szn Show folks would know that for sure. The hand signal, I want to get back to the hand signal. Now, My wife and I don't have a hand signal, but there have been times where we've been in a situation with one or both kids, and our approaches are clearly veering in opposite directions. Okay. Like maybe they start similarly, like we need to solve this issue. And then I start going on this path and she starts going on this path. And then suddenly we both go, oh, hey, what are we doing here? What are you talking about? Because I'm not talking about that. At that point, you got to pull the ripcord and say, okay, all right, this conversation is going to be not ended, but put on pause. We're pushing the pause button, which, by the way, current modern video games, no pause button, no pause button. Okay, so you can never say, hey kid, I need you to do this real quick, press pause. There's no pause. There's not, and so it never ends. It never ends. That's quite good for the video game makers, that video games can never end. I love it. I love it. Thank you for taking away the pause function of video games, video game makers. But anyway, yeah, you got to press pause. Old school pause. All right. You're playing Mario. Your mom says, hey, you forgot to get your dishes off the table. And you say, okay, I'm pressing pause. I'm coming down. Press pause on the conversation. And then you got to meet. And then you say, okay, what are we doing here? And then you get into that conversation. But you could have a signal. Okay. You could have a signal like stealing, like stealing bases. Okay. Steal third. I just made the sign of the cross for some reason. Sorry to get religious. But yeah, it is critically important to be able to stop the conversation and say, hey, we need to, again, like, create a united front in order to avoid confusing the children, because they get confused, man. They get confused. I remember being confused as a kid sometimes when I would want something, and one parent would say yes and the other would immediately say no. I say, so which is it? Do I get the thing or don't I? And there would be no real answer, so I would just assume I'm going to get this thing, and I don't get it, and I'm upset. You don't, being a kid growing up, as you remember, as former children, former babies. Actually, that line is from The Office when Andy says, as a former baby, and it makes me laugh every time. And yes, I know. Look, I know The Office is not high art. Okay, I get a lot of flack from Office haters who say it's the dumbest show ever, this and that. Look, it's okay to like a normie show. It's okay. I like arty shows, okay, and movies. I also like normie shows and movies. It's okay. It's okay to laugh at Andy saying, as a former baby. It's okay to laugh at Jim making funny faces at the camera. I promise. It doesn't make you dumb. It's okay. I say this as a snob who has seen the light in this regard. Yeah. So as a kid, you remember trying to navigate all the challenges of everyday life, and then your parents are going to introduce a bunch of confusing concepts and policies in the house, right? And you don't know what's what. You don't know what's up and down, up or down, things like that. And so don't confuse your kids, really. Like make every effort not to confuse children. All right, we're going to get back into the comments and we're going to wrap up the show. This, of course, is the Dad Szn Show. Thank you for joining me. You can check out all the episodes on Spotify, and you can check them out on YouTube. You can also, I put in the chat, actually, the Patreon link, if folks want to jump in there. I would appreciate the support. I'm going to put it in one more time. Let's get to the Darren says parenting safe word. Yes, you need a safe word. Sorry to the kids who are listening, but you do need some sort of safe word. Pineapple, perhaps, banana, things like that. that come out of completely nowhere. Um, and then Brett Mason says, "Don't confuse your safe words." Yeah, right. You don't want to do that. That would be uncomfortable. I think uncomfortable for everybody involved. Brett back in the chat says the kids will use one-on-one time to divide the front. Yeah, that is true. And if you're soft enough, and that's not an insult. Actually, Diego in the chat described himself as the soft parent earlier. It's not an insult. I'm soft. I am super soft. Okay, marshmallow soft. Some would say. I can be manipulated by a good emotional argument. So it's hard for me when I am alone with one of the kids and they're arguing their case for something they want or something they didn't get to do or whatever the case may be. I am susceptible to it. I can feel myself saying, why not? You only live once. Why not just completely destroy the united front that you and your wife worked to build up over the months and years? Why not? It could be fun. Never know. No, it's a horrible idea. Horrible idea. So yeah, you need to what I'm saying and what Brett Mason is saying in the chat. You need to hold that front. You need to really recognize that softness in yourself so that you don't make the mistake of dividing the front and further confusing the situation for your kids. Think of it like this. If you're soft and you let your softness win the day, it's bad for your kids. I'm not saying you have to be a hard ass, okay? I'm just saying, you don't want to backtrack on what you've said, on the commitment that you've made to a certain issue, a certain responsibility for your kids, whatever it is. It's counterintuitive because you want to give your kid what they want, right? Because you want to make them happy. That's the thing. I think my softness wins over when I just want to make the kid happy, right? Because it's like, what else are you there for? You're supposed to make them happy, but no, that's not true. I don't know. I guess I don't know. Maybe that's a straw man argument. Maybe no one has said that, but I feel like 21st century parenting is basically like, here's how to make your kids happy at all times, and that's not cool. That's not okay. It's going to backfire bigly. Okay, I promise. It's going to backfire, and you're going to regret it. Part of that, I should say, just to tack on to that thread there. Part of that is being comfortable with letting your kid feel uncomfortable feelings or negative feelings, whatever, negative emotions. You can't shield them from that. And trust me, buddy, I've tried desperately to shield my kids from all negative outcomes and feelings. It doesn't work. Turns out it does not work. It is a fool's errand. You can't. First of all, that's the thing. Like, as you know, you're probably listening to me and you're going, yeah, of course you don't want to do that. You can't do it. It's impossible. But you can try like hell. And honestly, just between you and me, you actually can. You actually can largely stop disappointment, stop anger, stop other negative feelings from impacting your kids if you try hard enough. But you're not letting them deal with the things that they need to deal with. That's hard for me. Super hard for me. Because again, like, it depends on how you grew up. I grew up in a house where my parents made every effort to make sure that I was never negatively impacted by anything. Okay? That my feelings were spared at any cost in all circumstances. That I was not made to feel a certain way, that I didn't have to deal with with the emotional turmoil of certain issues popping up or whatever. Okay. Sorry to be vague about it, but what I'm saying is it's okay if your kid feels crappy sometimes. It's okay. You didn't that doesn't mean that you failed. And you shouldn't try to stop bad, not bad things, but you probably shouldn't try to shield your kid from every little bad thing coming down the pike. They're gonna have to learn how to develop a tough skin. They're gonna have to learn how to develop abilities to deal with those feelings. Okay. And they're not going to have that experience unless they have to wrestle with these issues. And if you're stopping them from wrestling with the issues, then you're kind of at fault. And I don't say this judgmentally. I say this as someone who's done that many times. So you get that. All right, folks, we're gonna wrap it up here. A couple more comments here. Diego says, emotions are the feelings that help us remember the ways we effed up. It's the sensory experience of consequence. Yeah, that's really well said. Um, Neil's back in the chat. Not everything is a lesson, Ryan. Sometimes you just fail. I'm not sure where that's from, Neil. It's a quote, some movie quote of some kind, I'm sure. But yeah, not everything has to be a lesson, and your kid has to deal with failure sometimes. Okay, it's just the case. I wanted to mention, just on a lighter note, the good cop bad cop conversation is a little bit heavy, but I really encourage you to avoid it by implementing the steps that we talked about on the show today. I don't think it's that complicated to avoid the scenario where one parent is the disciplinarian good cop, a bad cop, and then the other one is the one who says, "Oh, come to me with your bad feelings, and I will make everything better." It's okay. Everything's okay. Okay. The bad cop said the mean things to you, like you need to do your chores, and I'm saying you don't need to do them right now. Okay. This dynamic is just poisons everything for the family. You got to avoid it. I want to check out on this note. Dad music. I play classic rock all the time, the classic rock station, in the car with the kids. And I've never really thought of myself as like a huge Billy Joel fan. I mean, I grew up like listening to the best of Billy Joel with, in my mom's car, along with like the best of the Eagles, Rolling Stones. Um, I mean, the way I learned about sex was through Rolling Stones songs, just so we're clear. And other best of, classic rock stuff. But anyway, I never thought of myself as a Billy Joel guy, but in my older age, I'm 40 now. I find that every time a Billy Joel song comes on, this is mostly like 70s Joel. I'm sorry, not 70s, 80s Joel. I will turn it up and I will tell my kids, you got to be quiet, folks. You got to be quiet for like 3 minutes, 4 minutes while daddy listens to Piano Man, or what is it, the other one that I love? Going out. What is it called? Shoot, I forget it now. It's a Piano Man. Moving out. I love Moving Out. Okay, I can sing the hell out of Moving Out. If I ever do karaoke again, I'm doing Moving Out. Okay. And Diego says, you ever notice that how the most famous part of Piano Man is a harmonica solo? It makes you think. Yeah, harmonica solo. Also, something big in the 80s was xylophone solos. Toto's song Africa has a xylophone solo in it. Like really. It's like a 15-20 second xylophone. So someone was in the studio like let me at it, man. Let me rip on the xylophone. Let me do it just once. Let me get it in this song. I'm just gonna play the hell out of the xylophone. Beep, boop, boop, beep, beep, boop, boop, boop. And just let me go at it. Get it in the song somehow. And I guess someone in the studio said, "Okay, all right, we'll do your xylophone solo." And that's in one of the most popular songs in of the 80s, maybe ever, maybe in pop music history, Africa. It's funny how that happens. Anyway, turns out I'm a Billy Joel super fan. I know all the words and I get really into it. And I didn't do that until recently. it feels like the final evolution of like my daddom is that now I tell the kids to shut their dang mouths while Billy Joel plays. Please. All right, folks. That'll do it. Episode 8 of the Dad Szn Show. Thank you for joining me as always on YouTube. Thanks for listening on Spotify. I'm still trying to get the show on iTunes. We're efforting. We're looking into it very powerfully. Sorry about the delay there. But yeah, like and subscribe, all that stuff. Check out the Patreon, see if you like it. It's a good community. I think that we're slowly building up. And until then, folks, it remains Dad Season.